Real strength doesn't shout, it whispers. True courage isn't found in the loudness of our reactions, but in the quiet power of our responses. Imagine facing life's chaos, not by avoiding or numbing it, but by embracing vulnerability as your armor. What if nothing could truly disturb you anymore? What if you could master the storm within, choosing peace over reaction every time? Let's explore how to turn every trigger into a teacher and transform disturbance into growth. Courage is quiet, not loud. It doesn't roar or demand attention. It whispers steady and resolute in moments when the world expects you to shout. Society often portrays courage as grand gestures, bold moves, and fearless actions in the face of adversity. Yet real courage is far more subtle. It's the calm voice that says, I will try again tomorrow after a day of failure. It's the quiet decision to hold your ground when everything inside you wants to run or react. It's in the moments when you choose to stay silent, to listen, or to take a breath before responding, even when your emotions are pulling you in every direction. True courage isn't found in displays of dominance or bravado. It doesn't seek validation or applause. It's the inner strength that allows you to face discomfort and uncertainty without being overwhelmed. It's the act of showing up, being present, and standing firm in your values even when no one is watching. This kind of courage requires a deep connection to yourself, a willingness to explore the depths of your fears and insecurities and confront them with honesty. It means resisting the impulse to mask fear with aggression or noise, choosing instead to meet it with quiet resolve. In our loud world where reactions are instant and opinions are shouted across every platform, quiet courage is often misunderstood. It's easy to mistake silence for weakness or inaction, but it takes immense strength to remain composed in the face of chaos, to resist the urge to lash out or defend yourself unnecessarily. There's power in choosing not to react, in holding space for reflection before action. This kind of courage doesn't come from a desire to prove something to others. It comes from a deep sense of self-awareness and self-trust. It's knowing that you don't need to shout to be heard or to react to every challenge that comes your way. Quiet courage is also about persistence. It's the steady, unglamorous commitment to keep going despite setbacks. It's waking up each day and choosing to face life's difficulties without letting them define you. This courage is often invisible to others, but deeply felt within. It's in the small, everyday choices to stay true to yourself, to speak with kindness when faced with hostility, or to set boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. It's the inner voice that reminds you that strength isn't always about winning battles. Sometimes it's about enduring them with grace. This quiet form of bravery transforms how we experience the world. Instead of being driven by the noise around us, we learn to listen to the whispers within. We find that true strength isn't reactive, it's reflective. It allows us to face life's storms without being swept away, to hold our ground without losing our peace. In this quiet space, courage becomes not just an action, but a way of being. It's a choice to stay grounded, to remain open, and to move through life with a steady heart and a clear mind. Embracing vulnerability as armor may seem counterintuitive. We often associate armor with strength, protection, and invincibility, something that shields us from harm and keeps our true selves hidden. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is often misunderstood as weakness, a soft spot to be protected. Yet in reality, vulnerability is one of the most powerful forms of armor we can wear. It doesn't shield us by hiding who we are. It empowers us by allowing us to face life openly, honestly, and authentically. When we embrace vulnerability, we step into a space of courage and resilience that no external force can shatter. To be vulnerable is to expose our true selves, to show up without guarantees, and to risk emotional exposure. It means admitting that we don't have all the answers, that we can be hurt, and that we aren't perfect. But in that openness lies strength. When we no longer feel the need to hide behind a facade, we become more authentic, more grounded, and ultimately more powerful. Vulnerability strips away the illusion of control and invites us to face life as it is, not as we wish it to be. It's in this raw, unfiltered space that we discover our true resilience. Wearing vulnerability as armor means choosing to engage with the world from a place of honesty. It means having the courage to be seen and heard, even when it feels uncomfortable. This kind of openness disarms both ourselves and others. When we embrace our imperfections and acknowledge our fears, we remove the power those fears have over us. We no longer need to expend energy pretending to be invincible or perfect. Instead, we stand firmly in our humanity, knowing that our worth isn't tied to our flaws or failures, but to our willingness to face them head on. Vulnerability fosters deeper connections. When we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, we create space for genuine intimacy and trust. It's easy to build walls to protect ourselves from rejection or judgment, but those walls also keep out connection and understanding. By embracing vulnerability, we invite others to do the same. We create an environment where authenticity thrives, and real relationships are built not on superficial interactions, but on a foundation of mutual openness and respect. There's also a profound sense of freedom that comes with vulnerability. When we stop hiding our fears, mistakes, or insecurities, we free ourselves from the weight of pretense. We no longer have to carry the burden of maintaining an image or proving our worth. Instead, we walk through life with a sense of inner strength that no external circumstance can shake. Vulnerability becomes our armor because it makes us unafraid of being real. It allows us to face challenges without losing ourselves, to accept failure without being defined by it, and to show compassion to ourselves and others. Embracing vulnerability as armor is a choice to live courageously. It's a commitment to authenticity, even when it feels risky. It's the understanding that true strength isn't about avoiding pain or hiding flaws. It's about meeting life with an open heart, trusting that in our willingness to be seen, we discover the deepest, most unbreakable form of resilience. Mastering your emotional landscape is about developing an intimate awareness of your inner world, understanding your emotions, and learning to navigate them with intention rather than being controlled by them. Emotions are powerful forces. They can propel us to great heights or pull us into despair. When left unchecked, they can dictate our actions and reactions, often leading us down paths we later regret. But when we learn to master them, we transform our emotional experiences from overwhelming waves into navigable currents. It's not about suppressing or denying emotions. It's about acknowledging them, understanding their origins, and choosing how to respond. The first step in mastering your emotional landscape is self-awareness. This means pausing to recognize what you're feeling and why. Often we react to surface emotions without understanding the deeper layers beneath them. Anger, for instance, might mask fear or sadness. Jealousy might stem from insecurity or a sense of inadequacy. By taking a moment to reflect on our emotions, we begin to unravel these complexities. We shift from being reactive to being reflective. This pause gives us the space to choose our response rather than being swept away by the intensity of the moment. Emotional mastery also involves acceptance. We often resist unpleasant emotions, trying to push them away or numb them. However, resistance only amplifies their power. Acceptance doesn't mean resigning ourselves to negative feelings. It means acknowledging their presence without judgment. When we accept our emotions, we create the opportunity to learn from them. Each emotion carries a message. Fear might be signaling a need for caution or growth. Sadness might be pointing to something that needs healing. By listening to these messages, we turn emotions into allies rather than adversaries. Another crucial aspect of mastering your emotional landscape is learning to regulate your emotions. This involves developing strategies to manage intense feelings constructively. Techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, and grounding exercises can help calm the nervous system and bring clarity. It's also about building emotional resilience, the ability to recover from setbacks and adapt to challenges. Resilience doesn't mean never feeling upset. It means knowing you can face difficult emotions and come out stronger on the other side. It's the belief that no feeling is permanent and that you have the tools to navigate whatever arises. Boundaries play a vital role in emotional mastery. Protecting your emotional space means recognizing what drains you and what nourishes you. It's about knowing when to step back, when to say no, and when to prioritize your well-being. Healthy boundaries prevent external circumstances from wreaking havoc on your inner world. They allow you to remain centered even when chaos surrounds you. Mastering your emotional landscape is an ongoing practice. It requires patience, compassion, and a commitment to self-growth. There will be moments when emotions feel overwhelming, but each challenge is an opportunity to deepen your understanding and strengthen your inner resolve. By becoming the observer of your emotions rather than their prisoner, you reclaim your power. You learn that while you can't control every external event, you have full authority over your internal response. In this mastery lies true freedom to face life's storms without losing yourself, to experience the full spectrum of human emotion without being dominated by it, and to move through the world with a steady, grounded heart. Boundaries are your quiet power, the invisible lines that define where you end and others begin. They are not walls to isolate yourself, but frameworks to protect your peace and preserve your energy. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and self-care. It's a declaration that you value yourself enough to safeguard your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Boundaries may not be loud or forceful, but their impact is profound. They empower you to navigate life on your own terms, fostering healthier relationships and a deeper connection to yourself. Many people fear that setting boundaries means pushing others away or being selfish. In reality, healthy boundaries create the foundation for meaningful and respectful connections. They clarify expectations, prevent resentment, and ensure that you're giving from a place of authenticity rather than obligation. When you establish boundaries, you're not closing yourself off. You're inviting others to engage with you in a way that honors your needs and values. This quiet power transforms your relationships by fostering mutual respect and understanding. It communicates that you know your worth and expect to be treated accordingly.
Boundaries also protect your emotional landscape. Without them, you may find yourself drained, overwhelmed, or taken advantage of. You might say yes when you mean no or tolerate behavior that violates your values. This erosion of self-respect can lead to burnout and resentment. By setting clear limits, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. You learn to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot, freeing yourself from the burden of others' expectations or demands. This act of self-preservation is not about shutting people out, but about creating space for what nurtures you. One of the most empowering aspects of boundaries is that they allow you to take responsibility for your own well-being. You can't control how others behave, but you can control what you allow into your life. This quiet power means that you no longer feel at the mercy of external circumstances or other people's actions. You reclaim agency over your time, emotions, and energy. You become the gatekeeper of your own peace, choosing what enters and what stays out. This isn't a defensive stance, it's a proactive choice to live with intention and integrity. Enforcing boundaries can be challenging, especially if you're used to putting others' needs before your own. It requires courage to say no, to speak up when something doesn't feel right, and to stand firm in your values. Yet, every time you uphold a boundary, you strengthen your sense of self. You send a powerful message to yourself and others that your well-being matters. This quiet assertion of power doesn't need to be loud or confrontational. It's in the calm, consistent reinforcement of your limits, the unwavering commitment to your own peace. Boundaries are an expression of self-love and self-trust. They allow you to show up in the world fully and authentically without being depleted or diminished. They foster a sense of inner security, knowing that you are protecting what is most valuable, your own sense of self. In a world that often demands more than we can give, boundaries are a quiet, steady reminder that you have the power to choose what you allow into your life. They are the invisible armor that enables you to move through the world with strength, grace, and unshakable integrity. Radical acceptance, not indifference, is a powerful concept that invites us to fully acknowledge reality as it is, without resistance or denial. It's about embracing the present moment, including all its imperfections and discomforts, without trying to change or avoid it. This doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens or giving up on growth and change. Rather, radical acceptance is an active process of facing life's challenges with open eyes and an open heart. It's a commitment to seeing things clearly and responding with intention, rather than being driven by avoidance or denial. On the other hand, is a form of disengagement. It's a defense mechanism that shields us from emotional pain by creating distance. When we are indifferent, we numb ourselves to the world around us, avoiding vulnerability and connection. This may seem like a form of protection, but it ultimately isolates us and limits our capacity for growth. Indifference shuts down our ability to learn from experiences or build meaningful relationships. It creates a barrier between us and the richness of life, keeping us in a state of emotional stagnation. Radical acceptance is the opposite of indifference. It requires us to engage deeply with reality, even when it's painful or uncomfortable. It means acknowledging our emotions, our mistakes, and the difficult truths we might prefer to ignore. This level of honesty can be challenging, but it's also liberating. When we stop fighting against what is, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of denial and resistance. We create space for healing and transformation. By accepting reality, we can begin to respond with clarity and wisdom, rather than being driven by fear or avoidance. This practice is particularly powerful when it comes to our inner world. We often struggle to accept our own flaws, mistakes, and painful emotions. We might judge ourselves harshly or try to suppress feelings we don't want to face. Radical acceptance invites us to meet ourselves with compassion and understanding. It means acknowledging our humanity with all its complexities and contradictions. When we accept ourselves fully, we no longer need to hide or pretend. We can show up authentically, knowing that our worth is not dependent on perfection. Radical acceptance also transforms our relationships. When we accept others as they are without trying to change or control them, we create space for genuine connection. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or abandoning our boundaries. It means recognizing that we cannot control others, only our responses to them. By accepting people's limitations and imperfections, we let go of unrealistic expectations and resentment. We approach relationships with a sense of openness and respect, allowing for deeper, more authentic connections. Radical acceptance is a form of courage. It asks us to face life as it is, not as we wish it to be. It's a commitment to staying present, even in the face of discomfort. This kind of acceptance doesn't lead to passivity or complacency. On the contrary, it creates a foundation for meaningful action. When we see reality clearly, we can make better choices and respond more effectively. We move from a place of resistance to a place of empowerment. Radical acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of the illusion of control and finding freedom in the truth. Letting go of the right to react is one of the most powerful and liberating choices we can make. In a world that often glorifies quick responses and immediate feedback, The impulse to react can feel almost automatic. Whether it's an unkind word, a stressful situation, or an unexpected challenge, our instinct is to defend, retaliate, or fix things right away. This perceived right to react comes from a place of wanting to assert control, protect ourselves, or validate our feelings. But in reality, this reflexive response often leads to more harm than good. Letting go of that impulse creates space for clarity, intentionality, and true empowerment. The right to react can feel like a form of power, but it often keeps us trapped in cycles of conflict and emotional turmoil. When we react impulsively, we surrender our control to external circumstances. We allow situations or other people's actions to dictate our behavior. In essence, we give away our peace. Reacting in the heat of the moment rarely leads to the outcomes we desire. It's driven by emotion rather than reflection, leading to decisions or words we might later regret. By letting go of this immediate need to respond, we reclaim our autonomy. We give ourselves the gift of pause a moment to breathe, assess, and choose how to proceed. Letting go of the right to react doesn't mean suppressing emotions or becoming passive. It means acknowledging our feelings without letting them take over. It's about creating a gap between stimulus and response, a space where we can decide what serves us best. In that space lies our true power. We're no longer puppets pulled by the strings of our emotions or others' actions. Instead, we become the architects of our responses, choosing words and actions that align with our values and long-term goals. This is where true strength lies, not in reacting, but in responding thoughtfully. This practice also transforms our relationships. When we let go of the need to react, we create an environment where understanding and connection can thrive. Imagine a conversation where instead of jumping to defend ourselves or prove a point, we simply listen and reflect. This doesn't mean we accept mistreatment or agree with everything. It means we choose how to engage. We can set boundaries or express our feelings without being controlled by the heat of the moment. This kind of intentionality fosters respect and deeper communication. On a personal level, letting go of the right to react builds emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable, and we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. By resisting the urge to react immediately, we cultivate inner stability. We learn that we don't have to be at the mercy of external events. This doesn't mean we won't feel anger, frustration, or sadness. It means we acknowledge those emotions without letting them dictate our actions. We choose peace over chaos, reflection over impulse. Letting go of the right to react is an act of self-mastery. It's a commitment to staying grounded and centered, no matter what life throws our way. It's the understanding that true power lies not in dominating others or defending ourselves impulsively, but in maintaining control over our own responses. In that space of calm and tension, we find freedom. We discover that by choosing not to react, we're not losing anything. Instead, we're gaining everything that truly matters: peace, clarity, and the quiet strength of knowing we are in control of ourselves. Every trigger is a teacher, offering us a window into our inner world and the opportunity for growth. Triggers are those moments when something external sparks a strong emotional reaction within us, whether it's anger, fear, sadness, or frustration. These reactions can feel overwhelming and at times unwelcome. Our instinct is often to avoid or suppress them, viewing triggers as obstacles to be eliminated. Yet, if we approach them with curiosity rather than resistance, they become powerful tools for self-discovery. Each trigger points to something deeper, revealing unresolved wounds, hidden fears, or beliefs that need our attention. When we are triggered, it's easy to blame the external situation or person for causing our discomfort. We might think, if they hadn't said that, or if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't feel this way. But the truth is, triggers are not about the external world, they're about what's happening inside us. The intensity of our reaction often stems from past experiences, unmet needs, or internalized narratives. By shifting our focus inward, we begin to see that the trigger itself is not the problem. It's a signal pointing to something within us that needs healing or understanding. Each trigger offers a lesson. If we're willing to learn, it might highlight areas where we need to set boundaries, revealing where we feel disrespected or unheard. It could expose insecurities or fears we haven't fully confronted. For example, if criticism from others triggers a strong defensive reaction, it might point to a deeper fear of inadequacy or a need for external validation. Rather than dismissing or avoiding these feelings, we can ask ourselves, why does this affect me so deeply? What is this reaction trying to teach me about myself? In doing so, we transform our triggers into valuable insights. This process requires courage and self-compassion. Facing our triggers means confronting parts of ourselves that may be uncomfortable or painful. It's not about judgment or self-blame. It's about understanding. When we approach our reactions with curiosity rather than shame, we create space for growth. We begin to see patterns in our behavior and emotional responses, gaining clarity about our inner landscape. This awareness is the first step toward transformation. Once we understand the root of our triggers, we can start to address the underlying issues, healing old wounds and rewriting unhelpful narratives. Triggers also teach us about our values and boundaries. They highlight what matters to us and where our limits lie. If a certain behavior or situation consistently triggers a strong reaction, it might be a sign that a boundary has been crossed. Recognizing this helps us communicate our needs more clearly and assertively. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can respond with intention, using our triggers as guides to create healthier relationships and environments. Every trigger is an invitation to deepen our self-awareness and emotional resilience. They are not setbacks or signs of weakness, but opportunities for growth. By embracing our triggers as teachers, we shift from being reactive to being reflective. We move from feeling at the mercy of our emotions to understanding and mastering them. In this way, our most challenging moments become the catalyst for our greatest transformation.